When the flashes turned cruel, night was supposed to be beautiful. Alexandra Grant stepped onto the red carpet in a simple gray gown, her hair pulled back, her face calm and soft under the lights. Cameras flashed like a storm of silver stars. People shouted names, fans cheered. And somewhere in all that noise was the man who always brought her peace, Keanu Reeves, walking a step behind, letting her have the light first dot, then the hook came fast and sharp. A voice from the press line cut through the cheers. "Hey, Alexandra, did you forget to dress like a celebrity today?" Another laugh followed. "Smile wider, maybe then you'll look famous." The laughs were small, but they spread. A few microphones leaned closer, hunting for a reaction. Alexandra tried to breathe. She had heard worse before, but something about tonight felt different. Maybe it was the way the crowd went quiet enough to listen. Maybe it was the way the jokes landed like tiny stones in her chest, one after another. She kept walking. Her hands trembled. She told herself to be strong, but the whispers grew bolder. "Stand next to him," someone shouted. "He'll make you look interesting." Her steps faltered. Keanu saw it all. The flinch she tried to hide, the breath she swallowed, the way her eyes searched for a place to land that wasn't a headline. He moved gently to her side, not rushing, not making a scene. He offered his arm. She hesitated, then took it. A photographer called out, "Keanu, over here." "Move her to the left. Better angle if she's not in the middle." The words were ice. Alexandra's smile broke for a second. She looked down, as if the carpet itself could rescue her. The crowd made that soft sound people make when they smell a weak moment. It should have been a celebration. It was turning into a quiet cruelty. Keanu stopped. The line of stars behind them slowed. The cameras lowered a little, confused. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't point or scold. He simply turned his body so he faced the press line and, with calm eyes and a steady voice, said, "We're going to walk at her pace." A hush fell. It wasn't a dramatic speech. It was more powerful than that. Simple, human. He looked at Alexandra, not at the cameras. "Take your time," he whispered. "This is your moment to." She nodded, though her throat ached. They took one slow step. Flashes came again, but softer, almost careful. Then a reporter tried one more push. "Alexandra, how does it feel to be the plus one at your own premiere?" Keanu's jaw set gently, like a door being closed with respect. He answered before she had to. "It feels like grace," he said. "And if you have trouble recognizing grace, tonight is a good night to practice." Silence. A few people lowered their microphones. Someone in the back clapped once, awkward, brave, and then more hands followed. The mood shifted. Not fully, not magically, but enough for Alexandra to breathe again. They moved forward. Keanu asked the photographers, still calm, 2 shots of her alone, please. He didn't ask like a command. He asked like a person who believed others could be kind if given a chance to show it. And they did. Cameras lifted. Alexandra stood alone for a moment, uncertain. She let out a small breath, lifted her chin, and looked directly into the lens of the nearest camera. In that instant, she was not defending herself. She was simply existing without apology. The photos captured something different then, not perfection, but presence. They continued down the carpet. People adjusted, as people often do when given a better example to follow. Someone called out, "Alexandra, we love your work," and she smiled, real and warm, like the first light after rain. But peace is a thin glass on nights like these. At the end of the carpet, just as they turned toward the theater doors, a man stepped out from behind the rope line. He wasn't press. He wasn't security. He had no badge, only a phone lifted high and a voice hard with envy. "Smile for the truth, Alexandra," he said, clicking a photo too close to be polite. "Tell us why you're really here." Security reached for him, but he slipped back into the crowd and vanished as fast as he had appeared. The air chilled. Alexandra's fingers tightened on Keanu's sleeve. Her eyes asked a question her lips could not form. Who was that? Why did his words feel like a threat and not a joke? Keanu leaned closer, steady and quiet. "We'll find out," he said. "But not tonight. Tonight is for breathing." Inside the theater, the lights dimmed. People settled into velvet seats. The screen would glow soon, and the world would forget the carpet for a while. Alexandra sat beside Keanu, her heart still beating hard, her mind replaying the voices, the laughs, the sudden shadow. He reached for her hand under the armrest. No one saw. It was not a rescue. It was a promise. "You did well," he whispered. "I felt small, She admitted, "Small isn't weak." He replied, "Small is what a seed feels like before it grows." She turned that line over inside her, like a smooth stone she could carry. The opening music began. The audience hushed. On the screen, stories of courage and love unfolded. But Alexandra's story was already moving toward its next chapter, the one where the stranger's photo would appear online with a caption sharp enough to draw blood, and where the past would quietly step onto the red carpet after all dot, and when it did, the world would learn that kindness can be stronger than fame, and that a gentle man can be fierce without ever raising his voice. Asterisk, when the world turned cruel the next morning, Alexandra woke up to a silence that felt heavier than sleep. Her phone buzzed again and again, the screen flashing with notifications she didn't want to read. By the time she finally looked, her heart sank. The photo from last night, the one taken by that stranger, was everywhere. It wasn't just on fan pages. It was on gossip sites, in headlines, in cruel captions. Keanu's gray-haired girlfriend ruins the red carpet look. Social media calls her the least glamorous woman of the night. Keanu deserves better. One post said, gathering thousands of likes, she dropped the phone on the table as if it had burned her. For a long moment, she just sat there, staring at the wall. The sound of her heartbeat loud in the quiet room, till a soft knock came at the door. She didn't answer. Another knock followed, gentler this time. "Alexandra," Keanu's voice said softly. "It's me." She hesitated, then opened the door. He stood there with 2 coffees, his face calm, his eyes carrying that quiet kindness that never tried to fix things, just helped them breathe. "You've seen it?" she asked, her voice thin. "Yes," he said, "and so has half the world." She tried to laugh, but it came out broken. "They hate me." He stepped inside, setting the cups down. "No," he said quietly. "They don't know you, and people who don't know you can't hate you. They can only misunderstand you." She shook her head, tears threatening. "They're calling me old, ugly, plain. They're comparing me to women half my age. I didn't even do anything wrong." "You walk with grace," he said, "and sometimes grace offends those who live on cruelty." Her voice cracked. "You always make it sound simple." "Not simple," he said, "just human." She turned away, covering her face. "You don't get it, Keanu. This isn't about art or fame anymore. This is about humiliation." "I saw the comments. They said you should have been ashamed of me." He took a step closer, his voice firm now. "Ashamed of you? Alexandra, do you think the world decides what makes me proud?" She looked up at him, tears shining in her eyes. "Then why does it hurt so much?" "Because you still believe some of them see the world the way you do," he said. "But they don't. They only see noise." For a while, neither of them spoke. The morning light spilled across the floor, cutting the silence into gold and shadow. Alexandra sat down on the couch, her hands shaking. "Maybe I should just disappear from this," she whispered. "Stop going to events. Stop being seen, and let them win." Keanu asked softly, "You told me once that art is a rebellion against silence. Don't let them take your voice. They already took my peace," she said quietly. He sat beside her. "Then we build it again." She laughed softly, tired. "You make it sound easy." "It's not," he said, "but it's worth it." For the rest of the day, they stayed in the apartment. Keanu cooked something simple, barely eaten. Alexandra tried to paint, but every stroke felt heavy. Outside, the world kept spinning, and with every refresh, her name kept trending down by evening. The noise grew worse. Talk shows replayed the video. Fake experts analyzed her body language. They spoke about her as if she weren't human, as if kindness, intelligence, and love meant nothing if you didn't fit the image they wanted. When night fell, she turned off her phone and sat in silence. "Maybe it's time for you to walk alone again," she whispered. "You don't need me dragging you through this." Keanu looked at her, unflinching. "If the world can't see your worth, then that's not my shame. It's theirs." Her eyes softened, but the pain didn't leave. "You really believe that?" "I know that," he said. She took a deep breath, her hands still trembling. "What if this never stops? What if they never let me forget?" He smiled faintly. "Then we show them something worth remembering." Her brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" "Tomorrow," he said simply. "Come with me tomorrow." "Don't ask where." She sighed. "You have a plan?" He nodded, his eyes calm, steady, unshakable. "No, I have a truth, and sometimes truth doesn't need a plan." The next morning, Alexandra would learn what he meant, and so would the world, because Keanu's quiet answer to cruelty would echo louder than every insult shouted at her. What he did next would make headlines again. But this time, the story wouldn't be about humiliation. It would be about humanity. When silence became his answer the next morning, Alexandra woke up to the sound of rain tapping softly against the window. For a few seconds, she didn't move. It felt safer that way, to stay under the covers where the world couldn't find her. She could still hear the echoes of last night's cruelty in her head. The laughter, the words, the headlines. Then she heard a quiet knock at the door. Alexandra, Keanu's voice called gently. "We have somewhere to be." She sat up slowly, her body heavy from lack of sleep. "Where?" "You'll see," he said. When she opened the door, he stood there in a plain black shirt and jeans, holding two umbrellas. There were faint circles under his eyes, but his calm expression didn't waver. "You're serious about going out?" she asked, hesitant. "Yes," he said simply. "We're not hiding anymore." She sighed. "Keanu, the internet is still attacking me. They're dissecting every photo, every word. If we go out now, they'll just—" He stopped her gently. "They'll do what they always do, talk. But today, we talked back, without saying a single word." She frowned, confused. "How?" He smiled faintly. "Trust me." They left the apartment quietly, stepping into the misty morning. Reporters were already waiting outside the building, cameras in hand, hungry for another moment to twist. The second they saw him, the shouting began. "Keanu, how's Alexandra handling the backlash? Do you regret bringing her to the event? Is it true you're distancing yourself from her?" Keanu didn't speak. He simply opened the second umbrella and handed it to Alexandra. When she hesitated, he took it back, stepped closer, and opened it above both of them. They walked slowly down the street, side by side, heads slightly bent under the rain, while the crowd kept shouting. Flashes burst like lightning, but Keanu didn't look up. He didn't wave. He didn't pose. He simply reached for Alexandra's hand and held it firmly. And that image, that single, quiet act, became the story. By the time they reached the corner, one photographer lowered his camera. Another stopped shouting questions. One by one, the noise softened. Maybe it was the stillness in his face, or the quiet defiance of his kindness. Maybe it was the way he chose tenderness instead of rage. When they finally reached the coffee shop at the end of the street, Keanu held the door open for her. Inside, the smell of coffee and rain wrapped around them like a small shelter. Alexandra sat at a table by the window. "You didn't say a single word out there," she whispered. "Why?" He stirred his drink slowly. "Because people don't always need to hear words to see what's right." She looked at him, her voice breaking. "But you didn't have to do that for me. I didn't do it for you," he said softly. "I did it with you. You're my partner, Alexandra. I don't disappear when things get ugly." She blinked, tears forming. "You know they'll twist this too." He nodded. "Maybe. But they'll also see what they can't erase. A man standing beside the woman he loves." Without apology, the barista brought their coffees. Keanu smiled at her kindly, as if nothing in the world was wrong. That small act, being normal, being human, grounded everything again, for the first time in days. Alexandra felt her shoulders relax. She sipped her coffee quietly and watched the rain blur the window. "You really think people will stop?" she asked. "Not all of them," he said. "But some will remember this. The silence. The way we walk through noise without letting it define us." She smiled faintly. "You make it sound like peace is a choice." He looked at her with a small, knowing smile. "It is. I've learned it the hard way." They stayed there for hours, talking about everything but fame, about art, about childhood memories, about the quiet beauty of doing nothing together. When they left, the rain had stopped, but the world had already shifted. Someone had posted a photo of them from earlier, Keanu holding her hand under the umbrella, his face calm, hers full of quiet pain and dignity. The caption read, "He didn't defend her with words. He defended her with presence." By afternoon, it spread across the internet. Fans began pushing back against the cruelty, calling it what it was, bullying. Journalists started to change their tone. A movement began quietly under the noise, one post at a time. That evening, Alexandra sat in her studio, painting again for the first time since the red carpet. Each stroke felt lighter. She painted the umbrella scene, the figures under rain, surrounded by shadows, but untouched by them. Keanu walked in silently, watching her from the doorway. "It's beautiful," he said, She smiled softly. It's not done yet. He tilted his head. What's missing? She turned toward him, her eyes gentle. The light, she said. Because light always comes after rain. Keanu smiled. Then paint it tomorrow. One step at a time. She nodded, finally feeling peace return to her chest. But neither of them knew what was coming. That somewhere, another headline was already being written. One that would test everything they'd rebuilt. A new video had surfaced. One that twisted his act of love into something else entirely. And the world was about to choose sides again. Asterisk, when kindness was twisted be the next morning. Peace had vanished again. Alexandra woke to dozens of missed calls, a storm of messages. And one word flashing over and over, video. Her heart raced. She opened her phone and saw it, a shaky clip taken from across the street. It showed Keanu and Alexandra under the umbrella, but the person who posted it had added false subtitles and a cruel caption. Keanu Reeves argues with Alexandra Grant after red carpet humiliation. The fake subtitles painted a lie. They made it seem like Keanu was scolding her, like their gentle silence had been an angry fight. People didn't question it. They shared it. It spread like wildfire. I thought he was better than this, one comment said. She deserves it after embarrassing him, another replied. Look how he walks ahead. He's done with her. Alexandra stared at the screen. No, she whispered. No, that's not real. That's not what happened. Keanu walked into the room just then, coffee in hand, calm as always. But when he saw her face, the calm faded. Alexandra, he said softly. What happened? She turned the phone toward him, her eyes wet. They turned your kindness into something ugly. He watched the clip once, silent. His jaw tightened slightly, but his voice stayed even. That's what they do when they run out of truth. She shook her head. But people believe it. Look at this. They're turning everything upside down. They're saying you look tired because of me. They're saying you regret walking beside me. He set the cup down, then knelt in front of her. Alexandra, listen to me, he said quietly. You don't have to chase every lie. We'll respond when it matters. Not with noise, with truth. How? She asked, trembling. No one listens to truth anymore. They do, he said, when it comes from a place they don't expect. That day, Keanu made a decision. He called his publicist and asked to schedule a live interview, not the usual promotion. Not a polished talk show, but something raw and human. No script, he said. No filters. I just want to speak. The publicist hesitated. Are you sure, Keanu? This could make things worse. He smiled faintly. It can't get worse if we speak with honesty. Later that evening, they arrived at a small studio. There were no flashing lights, no crowd, just a few cameras, a quiet host, and 2 chairs. Alexandra wanted to stay behind the scenes, but Keanu gently took her hand and said, Come with me. She hesitated. They'll judge everything. What I wear, how I look, how I breathe. He squeezed her hand softly. Then let them see what real looks like. When the cameras started rolling, the host spoke first. Keanu, Alexandra, thank you for being here. The world's been talking about that video all week. People have said many things. What would you like to say back? Keanu paused for a long time before answering. Then, in his calm, steady voice, he said, I think we've all forgotten that silence can mean respect. We've turned quiet love into suspicion and humility into weakness. That day, we were just walking. She was hurt, and I wanted to stand beside her, not to protect her from the world, but to remind her she didn't have to walk through it alone. The host nodded slowly. So the video wasn't an argument? Keanu smiled faintly. No, it was a moment of peace between chaos. But chaos doesn't like peace. It tries to turn it into something ugly. Alexandra watched him speak, her heart heavy and full at once. He wasn't defending her with anger or speeches. He was teaching through kindness. Then the host turned to Alexandra. How do you deal with the pressure, the criticism, the public judgment? She took a breath. By remembering that people who throw stones are often carrying their own pain. I don't want to throw mine back. I just want to keep painting. Her voice trembled slightly, but her honesty filled the room with something raw and real. When the interview ended, the silence in the studio was thick, not with tension, but with understanding. The crew clapped softly. One cameraman even wiped his eyes. That night, the video aired. No filters, no edits, no drama. And within hours, the internet began to shift again. The same clip that had been twisted into lies was now being replayed next to Keanu's words. People started to see the truth for themselves. "This is what love looks like," one viewer wrote. "He didn't shout. He didn't attack. He just stood beside her. The world needs more of this kind of strength." Alexandra sat in her studio, watching the flood of comments, her heart slowly unclenching. "You changed everything again," she said softly. Keanu smiled. "No," he said. "We just reminded them that kindness still speaks." For the first time in weeks, Alexandra picked up her paintbrush again. The new canvas showed the figures, not under rain this time, but under sunlight. The same umbrella lay folded on the ground, no longer needed. And as the paint dried, she realized something powerful. Every time cruelty tried to destroy her, Keanu met it with calm. Every time the world shouted, he chose silence that spoke louder. But she didn't yet know that peace never stays untouched. Because just when she thought the storm had passed, a new rumor was already rising, one that would test not just their love, but their faith in people's hearts. And this time, the wild wouldn't come from strangers. It would come from someone who once called her friend. When betrayal came wearing a smile for a few quiet days, life finally felt calm again. Alexandra's painting studio filled with light every morning, and for the first time in weeks, she could breathe without feeling the weight of the world on her chest. Keanu had gone back to filming during the day, and every evening, he came home quietly, bringing her small gifts, a cup of her favorite tea, a flower from the set garden, a note that said, "Keep shining." But peace never lasts long when the world is watching. On a Thursday afternoon, Alexandra was halfway through a painting when her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. At first, she ignored it, assuming it was another online comment or a tabloid request. But then another message came, and another. "You think the world forgives that easily? Wait until they see the real you." Her hands froze around the brush. The words were cold, deliberate, and far too personal. Keanu came home early that evening and immediately noticed her pale face. "What's wrong?" he asked softly. She handed him the phone. "Someone's sending me messages again. Threatening ones." He read them quietly, his jaw tightening. "When did this start?" "About an hour ago." "Did they say who they are?" She shook her head. "No, just whoever it is, they know things. Things about my old life, my old gallery. They mentioned Emily." Keanu's eyes narrowed slightly. Emily, Alexandra's former friend. The same woman who had once betrayed her out of jealousy. The same woman whose lies had nearly ruined her career years ago. "Emily disappeared after the last scandal," he said. "Why would she reach out now?" Alexandra looked down. "Maybe she didn't disappear. Maybe she was just waiting." Keanu placed his hand gently on hers. "Whatever this is, we'll face it together. I'll talk to Marcus. He'll trace it." The next morning, Marcus, Keanu's trusted investigator, arrived at their home. He analyzed the messages, checked the source, and frowned. "Whoever's behind this is careful," he said. "They're using layered servers. But the language, it's personal. This isn't a stranger." That night, as Alexandra sat painting, her phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a text. It was an email. And when she opened it, her heart nearly stopped. Attached was an old video, one she remembered all too well. It showed her and Emily from years ago, during their gallery days. They were arguing. Alexandra's voice, frustrated and emotional, echoed through the speakers. "You can't keep taking credit for my work, Emily. I won't let you do this anymore." In the video, Emily turned to the camera, pretending to cry. "See what I've had to deal with. She's not who she seems. It was a setup, a clip taken out of context. Back then, no one had seen it. Now, it was being sent to media outlets." Keanu came in as she sat frozen, her eyes locked on the screen. "What happened?" She looked up at him, her voice trembling. "She kept the video? She's using it now." Keanu's calm expression didn't falter, but his voice dropped to a steady firmness. "Then she's not just bitter. She's dangerous." Within hours, the video leaked online. Headlines appeared again: cruel, half-true, sensational. Alexandra Grant exposed. Hidden fight caught on tape. Was Keanu Reeves defending a liar? The internet turned chaotic once more. Reporters camped outside. Social media burned with new accusations. That evening, Alexandra sat on the floor of her studio, surrounded by unfinished paintings, her phone buzzing endlessly beside her. "I can't do this again," she whispered. Keanu knelt beside her, his voice soft but unyielding. "You can. Because the truth doesn't vanish just because people forget it for a while. She looked up at him, tears streaking her cheeks. They'll believe her again. They always do. She plays the victim better than anyone. He reached out, wiping her tears gently. Then let's stop playing by her rules. What do you mean? He stood slowly. Tomorrow morning, we go live. No studio, no networks, just us. We tell the truth, directly. No edits, no filters. We'll let people see who you really are. Alexandra hesitated. And if they twist it again, then at least we spoke honestly, he said. That's all that matters. The next morning, Keanu set up a simple live stream in her studio. No makeup, no stylist, just Alexandra, surrounded by her paintings, and him sitting quietly beside her dot when the camera turned on. Thousands joined within minutes. Alexandra took a deep breath and began. This video you've seen, she said softly, is real, but not the way they made it look. It's from years ago, when a friend and I had a falling out. I was hurt. I was angry. But that doesn't make me cruel. It makes me human. She looked at the camera, her eyes steady now. For too long, I let people define me through headlines. Not today. Today, I speak for myself. Not because I owe the world an explanation, but because truth deserves to live somewhere. Keanu reached for her hand and spoke next. People think love is about grand gestures. It's not. It's about showing up, especially when it's uncomfortable. Alexandra isn't perfect, and neither am I. But I'll stand beside her every time, because she leads with truth, not with masks. The live chat flooded with hearts and messages. Thank you for honesty. You two are an example of grace. We believe you. For the first time, the noise began to quiet again. Alexandra exhaled, leaning against Keanu, her voice a whisper. Maybe this time, they'll see. He smiled faintly. They already are. But as the stream ended, a final notification flashed on her phone. A private message from Emily. You think this is over? I'm just getting started, and somewhere far from them. Another video was uploading, one that could destroy everything they had just rebuilt. Asterisk, when love silenced, the noise of message from Emily lingered like a shadow on Alexandra's phone screen. She read it over and over. You think this is over? I'm just getting started. Until the word stopped feeling real and started feeling like a threat carved into her peace. Keanu found her still sitting there, hours later, staring at the phone. He placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. What did she say? Alexandra's voice trembled. She's posting another video? She won't stop, Keanu. She wants to destroy everything. My work, my name. U.S. He took the phone from her and read the message silently. His calm never broke, but something changed in his eyes. A quiet, focused resolve. Then this ends today, he said softly. By morning, the new video was everywhere. It showed edited clips of Alexandra and Keanu at various events, moments where she looked away or where he seemed distant. Spliced together, it created a cruel illusion that they were falling apart. The caption read, Keanu Reeves finally done with Alexandra Grant. Insiders reveal the truth. The internet swarmed again. Influencers made reaction videos. News outlets replayed it on loop. Alexandra's face filled every screen, mocked, questioned, dissected in her studio. She sat surrounded by her paintings, unable to pick up a brush. I can't fight her anymore, she whispered. Every time I stand, she finds a new way to knock me down. Keanu looked at her, his voice steady but firm. Then we stop fighting her. We show her what real victory looks like. Peace. She frowned, confused. Peace. He nodded. The one thing she doesn't understand. She's loud because she's hurting. She wants to pull you into her chaos. Don't let her. He walked to the corner of her studio and picked up one of her unfinished paintings. The umbrella scene. He placed it on the easel and turned toward her. Finish it, he said. Finish what she tried to destroy. Alexandra hesitated, then looked at the canvas. The figure stood under a gray sky, holding an umbrella. She had painted the rain, the shadows, even the hurt. But she had never painted the light. She lifted her brush. Her hand shook at first, but Keanu stood behind her, his voice a whisper. You don't have to be fearless, he said. You just have to keep moving, slowly, stroke by stroke. She painted light breaking through the clouds. It spilled over the figures, over the gray, over the past. It was soft, golden, alive. By the time she finished, tears filled her eyes. It's done, she whispered. Keanu smiled. No, it's beginning. That afternoon, without a word to anyone. Alexandra posted a photo of the painting on her social media. No caption, no explanation, just the image, two figures standing together under fading rain, sunlight touching their faces. Within hours, the post went viral. People wrote their own captions. Love doesn't need defense. Peace is louder than hate. She turned pain into art. The comments flooded in, messages of apology, of support, of gratitude. Even a few journalists who had once mocked her now called it the most powerful silent response of the year. But the biggest surprise came that evening. As the world debated online, Keanu and Alexandra attended a charity event, the first one since the storm began. Cameras flashed, as always. The noise started again, soft but familiar. But this time, something changed. When they stepped onto the red carpet, Keanu stopped halfway. He turned to Alexandra, looked into her eyes, and, without saying a word, took her hand and kissed it gently. The flashes exploded like fireworks. Gasps rippled through the crowd. It wasn't planned. It wasn't for headlines. It was real, simple, human. He looked up at her with a small, knowing smile. They wanted to see drama. He whispered, "Let them see devotion instead." Alexandra blinked back tears as the crowd fell quiet. For the first time, there were no insults, no whispers, just awe. People began clapping, softly at first, then louder. The photos of that moment spread faster than any rumor before. News anchors called it the kiss that silenced the internet. Fans flooded timelines with messages of love and respect. One headline read, "Keanu Reeves defends Alexandra Grant again, not with words, but with truth." That night, back at home, Alexandra sat beside him on the balcony. The city lights glowed below like a sea of tiny stars. "You never got angry," she said quietly. "Not once." "How do you do that?" He smiled faintly. "Anger makes noise, but love makes change." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "I didn't deserve this much patience." "Yes, you did," he said simply. "You always did." They sat there in silence, the soft wind brushing against their faces. Below them, the world that had once mocked now listened. And above them, the stars shone brighter than the flashes of any camera. The next morning, Alexandra's painting, After the Rain, was displayed at her new exhibition. On the plaque below it, she wrote just one line, "When cruelty spoke loudly, love answered softly." It became her most famous work, not because of the scandal, but because people saw something true in it, something they'd forgotten the world still had: decency, strength, forgiveness. And as Keanu stood quietly beside her during the gallery's opening, Alexandra looked at him and whispered, "You taught me that silence can be love's loudest voice." He smiled gently. "And you taught me that light always finds its way back." In that moment, surrounded by art, peace, and truth, she finally understood love wasn't about being perfect or untouchable. It was about staying kind when the world wasn't. And from that night on, every story written about them carried one message: you can't humiliate love that knows its worth.